And what I'd like to do is take a few minutes, and I'd just like to talk about some of the things that I've learned in my time at Walmart since 1979, and I joined a company that had 110 trucks and about 120 drivers, and what it is that we have today as a company. I will tell you this, I understand that these are not points that somebody's going to open up a book 2,000 years from now and read and base their life on. They're simple observations that I've made based upon my interaction with many of you. So I'll just run through them if you don't mind. Number one is hiring people better than yourself is the most effective way to build a career. It's really pretty straightforward. I'll give you a couple of stories. One of the stories is Robin Forbes. I don't know if Robin is here today or not. But what Robin Forbes did this past year in the finance area of the Walmart stores is incredible. She just set a priority that she was going to build a team of people who had extraordinary strength, was not going to be endangered by the fact that some of them would have much broader experiences than she had. And she built a phenomenal team that is going to serve all of you extraordinarily well as we continue to build this better Walmart. It's an interesting story. And in the process, of course, she now has been promoted to be in charge of all of our systems development for all of our worldwide financial organization. I think that's such a great story because the truth is, as I think about what Eduardo's talked about, which I am 100% on board, our focus is to build a better Walmart. You can't build a better Walmart unless we build a better us. Because isn't it true that what Walmart is a manifestation and a reflection of what we do? It's not like Walmart exists without all of us working together. And so Robin set out to build a better us, a better team that would be more effective. The best story I have about this, and it's a true story, is that in 1995, I hired a guy named Mike Duke to come in and take over parts of logistics reporting to me. In October of 1995, when Dean Sanders left the company abruptly and left Sam's, Walmart knew what they wanted to do. They knew all of the moves they wanted to make, and the only move they didn't know how to make was who to put into merchandising. They called me and said, I was in France. I'd given a speech in Paris on Thursday night. There was a fax under my door. It said, 7 o'clock Central Time in the morning, call in. I called in, and Rob Walton, Bill Fields, Don Soderquist, David Glass were on the line. And they said, when you come back on Monday, we want you to be Executive Vice President of Merchandising. Back then, we didn't call it logistics. I was the warehousing guy. And I was shocked that they would want me to do that because I'd never worked in a store, never been a buyer. I said, why would you want me to be in merchandising? And Bill Fields is on the phone, and those of you who know who Bill is would know that this is absolutely exactly the kind of thing he would say. He said, because you're the only person we've looked at who has somebody reporting to them that we believe can do the job as well or probably better, and therefore we think that warehousing will get strengthened, and if you fail in merchandising, we will have only had one problem. That's what I was told. As simple as that. My career was determined by the simple fact that I was willing to hire somebody better than me and give them credit for what they did. That is what freed me up and gave the company the confidence for me to do something else. Second thing I think about as I travel around, and I run into this sometimes, is that ego is the greatest enemy of leadership. Now, a lot of you are my age. If Bart Bewley was here, he's about my age. Most of you sometime in your life will find out that this world does not revolve around you. It does not. At some point, it revolves around your children. Then, I can guarantee you this, it will revolve around your grandchildren. But it's not going to revolve around you. And the more you fight to make it revolve around you, the more ineffective that you will be. All of us have an ego. That's not what we're talking about. It's the management of the ego. Isn't it interesting that Sam Walton stayed as human as he was, regardless of the success of this company? That from the day he started the first Ben Franklin store to the day that he passed away, he celebrated the associates in the stores and in the distribution centers and in the computer center. I remember one Saturday morning when Sam said, "Nothing of importance happens at the home office. What's important happens at the store." People came up to me and said, I find that hurtful to think that what I do doesn't have value. That wasn't what Sam was saying. He was trying to make sure that we understood, that we had our priorities, that we understood that the heartbeat of this organization is at store level, not in the home office. And he never importantized himself. I find that strange because he didn't, but yet many of us will. And we have to fight against that. But I do believe that ego is really the greatest impediment to good management. One of the things I've learned over a long period of time is most of what you say the first time will either be misunderstood or ignored. Somebody asked me what my leadership style is. I say it's leadership by erosion. I just continue to ask the same question. Usually the people who report to me figure out that maybe I have an interest in this subject and they should spend some time on it. A lot of times people just want to kind of wish for things to happen. And they don't really communicate. And I'll talk about that in a minute. What has Paul Heim always said to us? Paul Heim always said that repetition is the queen of all learning. We have to. If we want integrity in the company, we've got to talk about integrity. If we talk about integrity, we can't talk about integrity as an abstract thing. We have to talk about integrity as how it really happens and why it's important. So you have to make sure that people understand what it is that you want. When people know what you want, they will often give it to you. I think that's an interesting one. I ran into that one at a store. And the market manager had gone into the store and said, "This back room is a mess. I want this back room cleaned up." I happened to be in that store 6 months later when the store had then gone out, hired an outside warehouse, moved into the outside warehouse, and the outside warehouse was now the same mess that the back room of the store has been. But they had done exactly what the market manager said because the back room of the store was perfect. They gave him what they thought he wanted. People will often give you what you want. What if the board of directors called Eduardo Castro Wright and said, "We want an 8% comp increase"? Eduardo could give an 8% comp increase to this company starting next week and do it for the entire year. Now, you may not be happy with the profitability, but if that's what you do, so when a market manager calls a store manager and says, "Get your wages to 7% this week," the store manager will probably give that market manager what he wanted. And a lot of the issues we have today really go back to that. Another thing I've learned is that having good intentions does not guarantee forgiveness. It's an interesting one, though, isn't it? I do, because I get involved in some of these things that you read about in the newspaper, I do run into the people that said, basically what they say is, "Yes, I did all these things, but I meant well, therefore you should forgive me." In warehousing, we always had a saying that we talked about, Don't mistake effort for achievement. Don't mistake efforts for results. Because in this company, we're paid to get great results. And we're paid to get great results the right way, aren't we? It's just critical to what we do and to who we are. The ability to give constructive feedback is a rare talent. Now, you all may not believe that. Fortunately, Rob Walton doesn't suffer from that malady. I have my evaluation in 2 hours. I would not want you, Rob, to think this is encouragement for more constructive feedback. I think this particular one is very, very dangerous. I really do. If you're a store manager and you have assistant managers working for you, and let's say they're 24, 25, 28 years old, and they're working for you, and what you're doing with your day is telling them to build this end cap or do this or do that. And when they don't handle people well, you go in and take care of it, but you don't want to have constructive dialogue with them, so you just pass by. When you see them flirting on the floor with somebody and you know there's a potential problem there, but you're not comfortable broaching that subject. At the end of the day, when that person is 60 years old, what will you have done by failing to give constructive feedback? You will have robbed them of their potential career. I don't know about you. I don't want constructive feedback. You know what I mean? I'm 57 years old. I think I've heard enough. But I would tell you, I need constructive feedback. When I was running the warehousing area, we had a meeting one time. I was in trucking, and they had the warehousing area. And the warehousing group, believe it or not, everything has a caste system. You know what I mean? And the warehousing people always thought they were better than the trucking people. And it used to, you can imagine with me, I have a little edge anyway, it just irritated the devil out of me that these people thought they were better than us. And so they wanted to do something that I didn't think was the right thing for trucking and wasn't the right thing for the company. And so we had a meeting, and Don Soderquist was in the meeting. And boy, did I use my wit and humor like a saber. I was on my game. And I felt so good as I walked out of there. Soderquist said, "Why don't you come to my office?" Which was never a good sign. And he said, "Lee, we got in there," and he closed the door, which was another not a good sign. And he said, "Lee," he said, "I just need to get some clarification." And I said, "Well, what's that?" And he said, "What was your objective in there? Was your objective to do what was best for the company? It was your objective to make everybody in that meeting mad at you?" And he said, "If I know what your objective was, I can better evaluate how you accomplished it." Now, he could be sarcastic too, it appears. And I thought about that. And gosh, that was exactly right. I had done nothing to give constructive feedback and information in that meeting. But Don changed me. Don changed me. In fact, how Don changed me is after every meeting, Don and I would go in and have a closed-door meeting until I got myself aligned in a better state. But just as hiring Mike Duke, if it hadn't been for Don Soderquist doing those things for me in a constructive, healthy, developmental way, I wouldn't be here. I don't know, Pat, how many assistant managers we have. But one of the strengths of this company is our numbers. And out of that number, if you are doing the right things in helping them to develop, how good can we be? Let me tell you, it is one that I would like for you to make sure that you are doing. Another thing I thought about one time when I was, recently actually, we had a promotion. And a young man said, "I can't take that promotion because I'm not yet ready. My department isn't in perfect shape." And it reminded me of this, and that is very few people ever feel like they are on top of things. There is an underlying fear of failure. Don't you have that sometimes? I mean, in this company with all the moving parts, and in a store, and in a distribution center, Roland running the information systems department, do you ever feel like you have everything nailed down and everything is perfect? I think it's just the way life is. And quite honestly, I think with the internet and with 24-hour news and all of the things that are going on, I think it's even more difficult because everything is out there and it all has to be dealt with, and there are all of those balls in the air. Now, some people, like Tom Hyde, who runs our legal department, they appear like none of this is going on. But the truth is, underneath, Tom Hyde has to feel the same way. I think all of us do. And why do I cover that as one of the things I think people ought to know? Is because I think it helps us all if we understand that we're all in the same boat. If you look up here at an Eduardo or a John Fleming or somebody and you think they're immune to these human issues and these challenges that you have, you're just wrong. Because at the end of the day, we are a lot more alike than we are different. And we all have these common things, and my gosh, how am I going to manage all of that? Another thing I run into, and certainly over the last couple of years we've run into it in a very visible way, and that is that integrity is the single most important characteristic of leadership. Integrity is the single most important characteristic of leadership. You can overcome almost anything in the job you have. You can overcome the fact that maybe you're not a great public speaker, or maybe your eyes are two different colors and it distracts people when they talk to you. You can overcome almost anything, but you cannot overcome a lack of integrity. I don't think the people in here, 99.999%, are going to steal from this company. I don't think you will. I don't think you have any intention of stealing from this company. What is it that I deal with, though? I deal with the person who would never have stolen from this company, but they get a girlfriend, and they're married, and they can't figure out how to get the cash to support what they want to do with their girlfriend, so they compromise on an expense report. You get the buyer who has a supplier come in with a garment that they like, but they don't like the supplier. They have the supplier leave the garment, and then they take the garment to a different manufacturer to get it made. That's the integrity that I deal with. The integrity we have to have with each other in telling the truth in a constructive way that causes us to be a better Walmart is the integrity I worry about. The people who just steal, they'll leave. It is the life-compromising and the business-compromising situations that you develop that will really test your integrity. And of all the things I'm proud of in this company, I am proud that we are a company that stands for high moral values and high ethics. Sharing praise is a compromise. Give it all away. Easy to write down, hard to do. Not every day I have is a perfect day. Rob Walton, once in a while, will call and say, "Man, the results in the UK are just great." You don't think it runs through my mind to say, "Yes, I talked to Andy and we laid out a small plan and I think it's working." All of us want positive feedback and we want to collect it. And yet the whole value in that is then to get on the email or get on the phone and to call Andy and that team at ASDA and to say, "Hey, the chairman saw the numbers. He was so proud of you. I told him that you all have a laser-like focus on your customer, on your pricing, and on your colleagues." The improvement in the areas of home cleaning and paper goods in Japan, gosh, I'd like to take credit for that. But the credit belongs to Maki Nakamura. Give it all away. And ultimately, you will be blessed by people who will do what this company needs to be done, and by a management team that recognizes your strength, your competence, and your abilities. Here's one that a lot of people really, I think, struggle with. What you say and how you say it is not nearly as important as what is heard and how it is heard. Have you ever had somebody who said, boy, in their evaluation, I told them everything they needed to hear? Or you have a meeting and you've told somebody everything they needed to hear? The truth is, the value of that is this. It is zero. The only thing in our jobs that is important is what did the people hear? How did they hear it? You know what Tom Shoey does? He gives people an evaluation. At the end of the evaluation, he says, when you go home tonight and tell your spouse about your evaluation, what will you tell your spouse? And has them repeat it to verify whether or not his message got through. It was so funny because I went to Habern's retirement party the other night, one of 5 they've had for him in the last week, and I walk in and I run into a spouse of one of the people who had been evaluated by Tom, and she said, "Did you talk to my husband about talking too much?" And I thought, man, Tom's thing is working. People hear, and if they can't hear, they can't change. It's not important what we say. It is important what they hear. Another one that I find kind of interesting is that even though you might feel strongly about something, there is the possibility you could be wrong. So I get an email this week from a young woman that says, "Mr. Scott, in my department they have put a new system in that eliminates my job. This is the best job I've ever had in my life. I love doing it. They have offered me another job at the same pay, but it's not as much fun. When Mr. Walton built this company, he built it so that he could employ associates. What you're doing is against everything Sam believed in." Well, I get those all the time. In fact, the other day I told Eduardo, based on the number of people who know exactly what Sam Walton would do, I think we should have no rules and just tell him to do it, because he was pretty darn effective. But on the other hand, I worked this company a long time, and Sam was alive a lot of that. I don't remember ever that the reason that we built this company was so we could employ people. I thought it was so we could serve customers, grow a business that provided opportunities for all of us to grow. And if Sam believed what was in that email, wouldn't you think that we would still be tagging merchandise in the back of all stores instead of scanning? Because quite honestly, we had some people who liked to tag merchandise. We eliminated those jobs, grew this company, grew the employment, and the people who used to tag had other things that they could do. But that's all of us do that. Hers is a case that is highlighted as big as the sun. But each one of us, as we've gone through these changes, each one of us have done those kinds of things and drawn those circles around ourselves without thinking about it in a broader way. Thinking that we were right, inherently right, and that we know better than anyone else, which then does what? Causes us to be terrible listeners. Because the truth is, the strength of this organization is all of us. There are no Nobel Prize winners in this organization that I'm aware of. There are plenty of people who are plenty smart, but the strength of this thing is the combination of all of us. Another thing I talk about is, as I get out there, and I've really learned this personally, is your harshest critics may be the most helpful voice you hear. It goes back to constructive criticism. Because we don't give good constructive criticism, we really need to be able to hear what is it that we're doing wrong. And so we get plenty of that, don't we, from the outside? But because we're human and because we have egos, what do we want to do? If somebody in an article writes 10 things and 9 of them are glaringly wrong, what we want is the license to ignore the 10th, even though the 10th may be absolutely true and we need to change. People criticize Walmart for not doing enough in this world. Well, what are we supposed to do? Because of what you do, you raise the standard of living for working people all over this country and all over this world. Are we supposed to do more? And then we started thinking about sustainability, and we found out, you know what? It wasn't unfair. We can do more. We can create a better Walmart and in the process create a better world, a more sustainable world. But if we'd ignored all of the criticism they gave us because so much of it was wrong, would we ever have looked inside to see what we could do better? Just because the loudest associate, the most difficult associate is most times wrong, does not mean that they are always wrong. They may be telling you things you need to know, and you can't tune them out. And finally is that there's a cost to being special. There is a cost to being special. Most people are unwilling to pay the price. I'm going to go back and talk about Sam again. I joined this company. I thought in 1979 a lot of these things were just bizarre. I'd come from the trucking industry, and here you come to work at Walmart, and Walmart doesn't pay for alcohol. Pretty straightforward. Why? Sam said, customer isn't getting any advantage out of you having a drink. Why should they pay for it? Made sense to me. Sharing rooms. Riding on the trucks to Searcy, as I rode on the trucks to Searcy to save the mileage expenses. Working Saturday mornings in the home office, which isn't done anywhere. Having very modest offices. All of those things are all differences. You know the difference, I think, between Sam and the generation of Walmart people that followed him, and I think the company we are today, is that we realize you have to do things differently if you want different results. I get people in my office, though, and they say, we interviewed a guy, Joe, that you were thinking about in China to come in and work under you a few years ago. And he wanted a limousine service to drive him back and forth to the office. He needed to stay in only 5-star hotels, and he needed for the company to buy him a Mercedes car when he wasn't going to the office because in China, appearances are important. And when you talk to him about what he said was, everybody else does these same things. So if we do everything everybody else does, if you take a ledger sheet and we do everything everybody else does, when you add up at the bottom, will there be any difference? No. I mean, the reason we're different is we do different things. We pay a price. You pay a price for that. I'm going to go back just a second, and I want to go back to sharing praise. Sam Walton would walk by on a Friday morning meeting with his yellow legal tablet after I had a good P&L, and he would smack me on the shoulder and he'd say, "Great P&L, Lee. Thank your team." Made my day. Made my day. For you, if I had a yellow legal pad up here today, I would stand up here and I would smack you and say, you know what you accomplished this year, there isn't another group of people in this world that could have. In the midst of all the changes that we make fun of, you will have ended this year with record sales, record earnings, and record market share in the United States.